ladies and gentlemen, access to medicines at affordable prices has been the mantra of the poor and developing countries for decades. Of the 7 billion people living on our planet today, 6.2 billion live in the emerging and developing world. The current pricing and drug patent monopoly regime globally only ensures that the well-being of 10% of the world's population is protected. We are here, therefore, to discuss the remaining needy 90%, and I believe that there is an urgent need to provide essential, affordable drugs to safeguard a stable and healthy environment in the emerging countries, including India. Healthcare in India has always been in a state of perpetual crisis. The disease pattern in India is frightening. 110 million afflicted with mental illness, in excess of 80 million cardiac patients, 60 million diabetics, 60 million asthmatics, 60 million hepatitis cases in India. 1 in 3 Indians are latent carriers of TB. Several million cancer cases annually. TB, cancer, the neglected diseases. The current Indian population is 1.35 billion. And the government itself has estimated that by the year 2050, our population will be 1.65 billion. Now, towards this, what did India do? In 1972, a very nationalistic India at that time, believing in self-reliance and self-sufficiency, passed a patent bill that allowed product patents to be abolished, only process patents. And with this, what the indigenous industry did was have a major breakthrough, and by the year 1995 to the year 2000, India was regarded as the pharmacy capital of the world, and I think somebody earlier today referred to this. Until the early part of this century, it was the monopoly stranglehold of multinational companies that led to millions of Africans in sub-Saharan Africa dying of HIV and AIDS, as the price of antiretroviral drugs at that time was unaffordable and beyond the reach of the poor. Hardly 2,000 Africans with HIV could afford treatment. The price range in the year 2001 was $12,000 per patient per year. It was our company, Cipla, here in India, that took the lead and produced a triple drug cocktail, which was offered at below $1 a day. At no time did we infringe any international patents. This initiative is currently ongoing and has now resulted in over 17 million people in Africa alone being treated for HIV and AIDS. And for most of you doctors here, the interesting thing is that 90% by volume of all the HIV and AIDS drugs produced in the world originate in India. And we believe that our timely humanitarian action, access to affordable ARV drugs, started in 2001, has been responsible for saving millions of lives. Now, I'm bringing this as an example, and I've specifically mentioned this, that all the newer patented antiretroviral drugs are still accessible to us Indian companies under what is called voluntary in-licensing. And you'll be interested to know that some of the multinational companies producing ARV drugs have in-licensed us all the latest antiretroviral drugs, the TAF, dolutegravir, etc., have been licensed. Now, this ensures a continuous long-term supply arrangement. At a recent meeting at the UN, I personally assured many vulnerable African countries that at least when it comes to HIV and AIDS, the latest therapies will be available to them at affordable prices from India in the future years. Now, in the current scenario, the international pressure on India, regretfully, India reintroduced product patents in 2005. Our present and future patent laws need to be modified to protect not only India, but also act as a model for the developing world who today depend on India for their medicines and also in many areas for drug technology as well. Now, this is very, very important, and I think somebody raised this issue earlier this afternoon. We have never opposed drug patents. We have only opposed monopoly. And the one theme of my talk to you this afternoon can be summed up in the word monopoly. We believe that drug inventions have to be suitably rewarded. And this is possible if the WTO and countries that are under the UN introduce a pragmatic, compulsory licensing system that enables free availability of all newer patented drugs with a defined royalty to the inventor. Recently in India, and this is very interesting, that what happened in India was a system of voluntary licensing that led to the availability in India for many drugs for hepatitis C. The drug regimentation costing $84,000 per patient in the USA is available here in India at around $300. Now that's a very, very big differentiation. In fact, even if you look at the drugs for AIDS, for a cocktail of AIDS drug in America, I think an American has to pay not less than $24,000 per year. And the same drug, we Indian companies are exporting to Africa at below $100 per patient per year. Now, keeping this in mind and what happened with HIV and AIDS, our company, Cipla, took the initiative a few years ago to dramatically reduce the price of synthetic, non-patented anti-cancer drugs, which we manufacture here in India, totally legally, and provided them in India and many other countries at affordable prices. I think these drugs, particularly the anti-cancer drugs, and a lot of you here are oncologists, are drugs like imatinib, erlotinib, sorafenib, lenalidomide, temozolomide, capecitabine, etc. A company like us, we produce in all about 24 anti-cancer drugs, but these are all synthetic. We are beginning now to start producing 1 or 2 drugs which will be on the biotech sector. The divide in healthcare between the developed and developing world is immense. In November 2015, the UN formed a 14-member panel to formulate a report on access to medicines, promoting innovation and health technologies. Luckily for me, I was a member of this panel and could maneuver 1 or 2 things for the advantage of India and the developing world. The UN report was released in September 2016, and its message was clear and simple and yet very powerful. No one should suffer because they cannot afford medicines, diagnostics, medical devices, or vaccines. The report relates to making full use of the flexibilities available in intellectual property laws, promote drug access in technologies, and provide incentives for productive R&D. All countries of the UN are stakeholders to this report, and they should therefore formulate their own national legislations on availability of essentially monopoly and patented drugs. The UN has made a fervent appeal to implement the report's findings. So if any of you need a copy of the report, and you can write to me, and I'll have that sent to you. It's 94 pages. And the UN has actually appealed to many of the countries to heed the healthcare, and this is for the healthcare needs of individual countries. And what we have said, that individual countries should prepare their own essential list, drug list, of monopoly and patented drugs, and ask companies for a voluntary license like we received for hepatitis C drugs and the ARV drugs. In the absence of a voluntary license, I believe that governments should then bring in compulsory licenses. So I've divided this in three. You ask for a voluntary license. If you're refused a voluntary license, you can have an obligatory license, that the company should be obliged to give you a license. And if that also fails, then I think it is up to the governments of the emerging world to ask for compulsory licenses for those products that are sold currently under patent and under monopoly. I've myself gone with a begging bowl in recent times to many multinational companies, asking them to license us their drugs, and some have said yes, but the majority say no. Another issue, have I got some time? Another issue that was discussed at the UN recently was a question not related to us, but the question of AMR, antimicrobial resistance. And I think, being medical doctors, all of you should be a little more concerned about what AMR is going to lead to if it goes unprotected. And this is something that I believe we all should look at very, very seriously as to what we can do on AMR. We've provided many, many suggestions for this, some technical and some non-technical. On the technical side, I have stressed that if public-funded research is done for the development of new antibiotics, that because it is public-funded, it should be freely available worldwide on a non-exclusive basis so that countries like India can benefit from that. The scenario that I've described this afternoon, and what is existing today and what we urgently require. We require a pragmatic compulsory licensing policy. We require multinational companies to be more magnanimous in offering countries like India voluntary licensing. Now, as presented earlier, medical science today is shifting rapidly from chemistry to biology. The cost of this transition is enormous, and some of you are no doubt aware of the latest anti-cancer drugs designated as immunomodulators like Merck markets Keytruda and BMS markets Opdivo. Whether they'll bring this to India at affordable prices, I do not know. But most of these drugs particularly the newer anti-cancer drugs, are beyond the reach of individuals, irrespective of the geographical location of the individual. Even the Americans can't afford some of the drugs. And today, therefore, I think we stand at the threshold of a healthcare and humanitarian crisis because of monopoly of drugs. Now, I can only talk to you on a subject of which I'm aware of, and that is the manufacture of drugs. And I believe that our collective action has to be to accept and practice the UN report that has just been published with their suggestions on how to tackle the future of healthcare. And that unless this is done on a pragmatic basis, the fate of future generations for decades cannot be ensured. And I believe that to have a productive, healthy life and promote the well-being of the world, it is in our hands, the hands of the medical profession, the hands of the pharmaceutical industry, and healthcare people all over the world. And this is something that I sincerely hope on a humanitarian basis all of us will do. Thank you.